one of the big issues is college football right now. They're struggling. They're struggling. College basketball is struggling even more. I mean, they've had, I believe, over 100 games canceled. A lot of things, going on right there that they've got to get figured out. And, college football, I believe 3 bowl games have been canceled. One other is hanging in the balance. We'll get into, some of those games and some of the things that have happened and been set out of there. And it's unfortunate because I really want to see these players get a chance to play, finish out their seasons the right way, get a chance to be able to lace it up one more time. And because it's not the same for every player. We look at this as for many of these guys, they're going on to the NFL, they're going to play again. For a lot of these players, whether they're starters, special teams guys, maybe they get 5-7 snaps in a game. It's the last time they're going to get a chance to be able to put on that jersey. And so thinking that they had one more opportunity to go play in a bowl game and then have that taken away from them, and this is for players on teams that had to cancel, and then the team that was on the other end that lost their opponent. I mean, I understand, listen, I'm not placing fault on anybody, just the opportunity that was taken away from some of those guys. It's devastating. It's devastating to see. And every time I moved on a level, whether it was from high school to the NFL to college, and then ultimately the NFL and onward into regular civilian life, you always remember your last game. And it's unfortunate, when that happens. I remember my last game in high school, how the outcome of that was. I remember the last play in that one. I remember my last game in college, last time I was on the field and I broke my ankle in the final play. I remember my last game in the NFL when I was playing for the New England Patriots. And so you remember those final games and what that means and how it shaped your life, those emotional experiences. And so as we look at some of these guys, say, yeah, they're going on to bigger and better things. Yeah, they're going on to things that are bigger and maybe better, but you still can't replace those emotional experiences and those opportunities. And so here's the problem now. As I mentioned, we had, 3 games canceled, 1 game's hanging in the balance for college football. And, as we learn things, everyone say follow the science. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I do know this, that it's called the practice of medicine for a reason. I believe that intelligent people, they make decisions with the best information available at the time. And then as new information presents itself, you take that information, you parcel it out, and then you make new and better decisions based upon that updated information. And so that's one of the things that we're battling right now in college athletics. You saw the NFL make a hard right turn. They realized, hey, they put these safety protocols in. They want to make sure for the health and safety. And if I have to hear the term again, and I throw it at my kids and throw it around all the time, out of an abundance of caution and care, listen, I'm not here to see anybody get hurt. I don't want to see on a football field. I don't want to see anyone get sick. I don't want to see anything happen. Reality is those things do happen. And sometimes you have control to mitigate some of that stuff. Sometimes you don't. But as we look at this and we've watched, COVID and these protocols, these practices, these procedures evolve, we need to make sure that we're evolving, or I guess as the information on COVID evolves, we need to have those things evolve as well. And that's one of the things I think college football has really done a poor job at. Their protocols, their practices, their procedures haven't necessarily evolved and kept up with the information. And so we're seeing this now that we're making decisions today based upon things that were set in course 18 months ago. And that's really tough for players to handle. It's tough for coaches to handle. It's tough to be able to digest. And so as we look at, the transmissibility, the severity of illness and all these things that happen, yeah, you're more likely to get it. You're less likely to become severely ill. You get it even when you're vaccinated. You can transmit even when you're vaccinated. So we have to figure out people's risk tolerances for things. I've always been someone, I would say I'm more on the line of less risk averse. I'm more willing to take risks, especially when it's with my own body. And maybe that comes as a function of playing the game of football, being an athlete, understanding what goes into that, and understanding the fact that, there's some good things that can happen. There's bad things that can happen. And understand you can't mitigate all that risk. Some people are going to be more risk averse. And I get that. And I respect it. You can have people with different risk profiles and still be friends, right? Is that not how it works? I think we can. And so just understanding that and making some new and better decisions of everything that's going on and how we need to operate and what we need to be able to do. And so that is the stuff that we need to be able to absorb for this college football season, understand, and especially moving into next year in spring ball and for the rest of basketball season, because they're still in the midst of it. College football is still wrapping up, and hopefully nothing happens with the semifinal and the championship game. But really, those games, they matter for 4 teams. The rest of the games, they matter for teams as well. And I don't want to see those games be put in jeopardy. I don't want to see players missing games, especially for those guys who are playing their last game. We've got the Military Bowl, Boston College, 40 players are out. They can't play ECU. And I get it. I understand, like ECU, they're upset. The guys with Boston College, whether it's opt-outs, whether it's transfer, and those things, transfer portal, guys transferring out there, and then guys testing positive. Wasabe Fenway Bowl, Virginia's out versus SMU. That's going to be on Wednesday. I guess here's the one thing with Virginia. Okay, they had a couple guys test positive, number of players, they said. And so with that, then they took that information and then they tested everybody on their team, asymptomatic, everyone else. And you know what? They're going to have some positive tests. Well, it turned out they had a lot of guys that had it, completely asymptomatic. Were they transferring it? Yeah. If you would have ever known, would they have gone out and played? What would a super spreader been? I don't know. I do know this. Last year, there was no vaccine. And there were times where guys played in games who they ended up knowing later were close contacts and actually impacted and affected. And there wasn't some super spreader event. Now that, this new deal, maybe it's more Omicron, more transmissible, less deadly. I don't know. But I do know when we start to test people who aren't sick, that to me is starting to border on a little bit of lunacy here. And so that's where Nick Carparelli, the executive director of the bowl season. Now, I didn't even realize that this was a thing until this year. And they started talking about expanding the playoffs, and we need to get the bowl system involved and have more bowl games, and how they were against neutral sites, or against home sites, and they wanted all the bowls to continue to be incorporated. Where I think first round neutral or home sites, that's fantastic. Watching some of these FCS games, some of the Division II games, like that's great. I mean, it looks fantastic getting their home crowd, everybody juiced up behind their players. And so I don't necessarily agree with Nick on everything. And I understand his position exists because of the bowl system, and he needs it to continue to exist to keep his job. So it's in his own self-interest to go out here and champion the bowls. And that makes a lot of sense. But he comes out and says, in regards to the COVID protocols, that they're outdated and need to be adjusted immediately. They're causing more problems than there need to be. And I agree with him in that. And what's happening? The NFL made a switch. Now, I understand the NFL's private business, and college athletics is supposed to be a public, enterprise, quasi-government organizations. These big public schools, and a lot of them are drivers in their state. The highest paid and state employees are a lot of times the men's basketball and football coaches in the state. So I get it. I understand. There's a difference, but it's still now college football has become big business, and it needs to begin to operate a little bit that way, because those are the expectations that we put on the players, and those should be the expectations that we have for the operations as well. Now, Nick Carparelli, the executive director of bowl season, did walk that back, a little bit. He talked to Adam Rittenberg, and then he talked about the health and safety of players. But that's when he did reference the NFL's changes and what they were able to do and how they were able to make it work. And that's the thing I think that's the most impressive is we sit here and demonize the NFL and vilify them and this and that and players' safety. And it goes back to the concussions and back when my dad played, when they're jamming needles and dues to play all the time. But the product's out there, and they've come a long way. But games are always going to be played. They're putting the product first. And players, they have their choice of whether or not they want to do it. I'm all for taking care of the players, but make sure that you're protecting them from something that they want to be protected from and need to be protected from as well. And with that, Miami, the third bowl game, Miami's out of the Sun Bowl. Washington State is down in El Paso. They're still trying to find an opponent. And I understand Miami, like they said, they had a number of guys test. They're trying to get people out of there, trying to figure this thing out a little bit. And, Mario Cristobal is coming in, Manny Diaz is out. So it's a little bit sideways. And so, their desire to play, you can understand that. The players want to, but administratively, it's a little bit difficult and challenging. I just don't want to see any more of these games get canceled. I keep looking through the schedule. I enjoy watching them. I love watching football. It's going to be over soon, folks. It will be over. College football will be over soon. There's not many games left this year in 2021. There's going to be a handful in 2022. The NFL has, a couple weeks left, and then we're sliding right in. You're going to have to give you a 17th game, and then they're sliding into the playoffs. And so that's going to be over soon. So enjoy it while you have it.